I know you had mentioned a couple of examples previously just with the CRA. Are there any other invisible barriers that are in place, knowingly or unknowingly from the federal government, that if removed would make it easier? Like I think of plain language even, for example, like something so simple that we can just change the language to make it, you know, easily read and understood. Is there anything that you would suggest that the federal government could change?
So I think, thank you very much for the question. And, you know, I think, and certainly Ms. Gray knows I have MS, and MS Canada has long fought for people with invisible disabilities and how that happens in our society. You know, the example I gave of my friend Glenda, who, as I say, is nonverbal, the attitudes that people who have communication disabilities face are, you know, they're often, first of all, people start to shout at them because they decide they're deaf, or they treat them as if they have intellectual disabilities, but really she can't speak. And it's very simple that our system has so many things built into it. As I say, you know, the CRA says they can only deal with her, and I had this issue myself, they could only deal with a phone call, and the wait time was so long. I have severe fatigue. It then went into the time in the day when I go to sleep. So I think that, you know, it sounds like with the DTC and this example, it's sort of CRA is in my headlights, which they certainly are. But these attitudes are fundamental to how we approach all barrier removal. And I think that the invisible barriers in our society are the most insidious, because people say that they don't believe you because there isn't a test, there isn't a you know, for a long time, also diabetic, for a long time I said, you know, my MS, there's no test that can prove my invisible disabilities, which I believe are worse, if you like. I'm struggling for words now, which is one of my disabilities, than my mobility disabilities. But I'm also diabetic, and I can take a blood test every day and tell you exactly where my diabetes is. So I think what we have is an attitudinal problem, and that also comes with that lack of belief, and also that sense that disabled people, like that quote from 58 years ago from Paul Hunt, that disabled people are thought of in isolation, and that we're not thought of as just part of society. And, a blind friend has said to me that our streets are full of these accessible devices for everybody, street lights, and that she doesn't need them. So if we flip it the other way around, that,
Ms. Hewitt, I do have to move on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Falk,
Thank you.
for the